Welcome to Imaginative Visions. Justin here, live from the studio. And today, my friends, we are going to be talking about a Netflix documentary that I finally got a chance to finish. We are going to be talking about Hulk Hogan, Real American. Now, just want to give you a quick disclaimer. I'm not going to be showing any clips because I want to avoid any copyright strikes. So I will be showing you some WWE 2K26 footage using Hulk Hogan. So let's talk about the documentary. There may never be another wrestling figure quite like Hulk Hogan. For an entire generation, Hogan was not simply the face of professional wrestling. Hogan was professional wrestling. This is before streaming services, before social media, before wrestling became a non-stop content machine. Hogan stood at the center of a cultural explosion that transformed the WWF at the time, now WWE, from a regional territory attraction into a billion-dollar enterprise conglomerate. Netflix's Hulk Hogan Real American understands that legacy immediately. The four-part documentary series is not just about wrestling matches or championship wins, it's about the creation of an American icon, the cost of becoming larger than life, and the painful unraveling of a man who spent decades trapped inside a character the world refused to stop believing in. And the documentary carries additional emotional weight because it contains Hogan's final major interview before his death in July 2005 at the age of 71. Through these archive footages, personal confessions, celebrity interviews, interviews with celebrities in wrestling history, Real American attempts to tell the complete story of Terry Bollea, the man behind Hulkamania. The result is compelling, emotional, frustrating, and yet deeply human. One of the documentary's greatest strengths is how effectively it reminds viewers just how massive Hulk Hogan truly was during the 1980s wrestling boom. The younger audience in today's generation who only know Hogan through internet clips, his controversies, or brief WWE appearances may not fully understand how dominant his presence once was in pop culture. Hogan was everywhere. And I mean everywhere, folks. Television commercials, cartoons, action figures, movies, magazines, talk shows, sold out arenas turned him into one of the most recognizable characters, entertainers on the planet. Children viewed Hogan as a superhero. Parents knew his catchphrases. Wrestling itself became mainstream because of Hulkamania, the way it connected with the audience beyond the wrestling arena. The documentary shows how Terry Bollea's journey from a young wrestling fan attending Florida's wrestling events into this unstoppable force known as Hulk Hogan. It carefully explained Vince McMahon's national expansion strategy and how Hogan became the centerpiece of WWE's transformation during the Reagan era. The red and yellow gear, the giant muscles, the booming charisma, and the endless confidence created something larger than wrestling. Hogan was the first to make wrestling something truly iconic since Bruno Sammartino, but Hogan took that and ran with it into what made WWE what it is today. Hogan was an American symbol. And the archive footage shown throughout the documentary is truly incredible. Watching entire arenas erupt during Hogan's entrance still feels surreal even today because even I lived it. I remember watching WrestleMania 6 at 4 years old with my brother and my dad. Fans screamed, cried, and believed every second of what they were watching. This was a level of popularity in the wrestling world that was completely unseen and unprecedented. Wrestling went mainstream. But who was the man behind Hulk Hogan? Throughout the series, Hogan openly discussed the emotional and physical toll of spending decades performing as Hulk Hogan. Fame consumed nearly every aspect of his life, and Terry Bollea slowly disappeared beneath the expectations of the larger than life character known as Hulk Hogan. The documentary explores the severe damage wrestling caused to Hogan's body. Years of bumps, surgery, steroid use, painkiller dependency, and physical deterioration left him struggling simply to function normally. Several scenes show Hogan discussing how constant pain became part of everyday life. In those moments, even as wrestling fans, we know these stakes that these men and women and how they put their bodies on the line every single time they step in that ring. But it's still hard to watch hearing a wrestler talk about what they sacrificed just for the sake of our own entertainment. And for decades, Hulk Hogan represented strength and just this kind of invincible figure. Then you see an older Terry Bollea reflecting on broken relationships and declining health and emotional exhaustion, which creates some really good moments for the documentary. But they're very few and far in between because there's even one moment where Hogan is talking about the passing of his brother, and he literally cannot talk about it. Like he says, next topic, or we have to cut. It just is too painful for him. And that, for me, that moment watching, that was like, wow, that was like a very hard scene to watch. But the series also spends time examining Hogan's personal life. You get interviews with Linda Hogan, Nick Hogan. Brooke is not in this documentary, so you're not going to see anything from Brooke Hogan. You will see archive footage of her as a little girl, but you won't see Brooke actually taking part of the interview. One thing I felt that was weird was the inclusion of people who didn't like Hogan at all, who had beef with him, such as Bret Hart. Yes, Bret Hart is in this documentary, and Bret, I love Bret. Bret's my favorite wrestler of all time, but Bret's gonna be Bret. Bret kind of subliminally, subtly was burying Hogan. And then just I was just like, what? And then you have Jesse. Jesse was talking about but one thing I felt that was so weird as well was when Hogan was talking and everybody was talking about the Ultimate Warrior. This part I did not like about the documentary. They buried the Ultimate Warrior. They were talking about how bad of a wrestler he was, how he wasn't ready for the spotlight. And I get it, this is from Hogan's perspective and how he felt at the time. But this one went a little bit too long, and I felt that I was watching the self destruction or the ultimate destruction of the Ultimate Warrior DVD again. I was just like, what the hell? Like, damn, like he's gone. Like, leave it alone. But I will have to say this, that Real American did give us some surprisingly emotional depth, and we get to see a little bit of why Hogan was the way he was backstage when it came to the wrestling politics. The documentary acknowledges longtime criticism surrounding Hogan protecting his spot at the top of the industry. While it doesn't fully dive into every accusation, it at least recognized the tension and politics that followed him throughout his entire career. Here's my issue with the documentary, and one complaint I had that I felt was very frustrating is that the documentary addresses certain situations such as the steroid scandal, the backstage politics, the Goiker lawsuit, and the racist remark scandal that caused the WWE to temporarily distance themselves from Hulk Hogan in 2015. And this is where Real American really becomes frustrating because the documentary acknowledges these events, but it doesn't investigate them with the same intensity that they had for Hogan's successes. Several difficult topics feel shortened or softened in ways that make the series occasionally feel like it's trying to protect Hogan than actually just show the duality, the complex figure that is Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea. And that I feel is very warranted criticism. If you're not going to go fully in on the flaws of the subject that you're doing a documentary on, then just focus on the success and the business of it. Just say, hey, the impact of Hulkamania, what it took to the toll that it takes to become a professional wrestler. The racist remark controversy especially remains Hogan's darkest chapter of his entire career, and for many fans, it permanently changed how they viewed him, me included. But removing Hogan from its Hall of Fame section and then erasing him from the company's history showed how serious the fallout was. But then you put him back in, he had to do this apology tour. But the documentary often frames these moments more as tragic obstacles for Hogan rather than fully him taking accountability for the backstage politicking, the steroid scandal, all of it. And it doesn't ruin the documentary, but it feels like they probably had to edit things out, maybe due to the passing, or maybe WWE stepped in and was just like, "Hey, we can't address this. This is not something we want to have out there, or we don't need to remind people. You can just do very surface level." And that's what it was. It was a very surface level look at the flaws of Terry Bollea. And like I said, I have no issues with them addressing it. But if you're going to address it, go all in the same way you did his success. And if you're going to have, we're humans, folks. Everyone has their highs, they have their lows. We all have duality to us. Show both sides of the coin. He can be the superhero and he can be the supervillain. And that is okay. It's human. We're human. We're all flawed here, and you can feel the tension between presenting truly an honest character study and trying to preserve the mythology that is Hulk Hogan. And that's something I felt like it should have been a little bit more of. If you're going to address something, just address it. With that being said, let's get into our final score using our remote rating and our final thoughts. All right, let's bring up the remote rating, folks, because this is how we judge our streaming service shows or television shows. This is our first time actually, I think, doing this. So let's take a look at it. Our highest rating is binge worthy. It's addictive and unforgettable. Then we have must watch. It's excellent, worth every single episode. Then you have solid season. It's good, enjoyable, with some weak spots. You have background noise, watchable, but easily forgotten. Something that you just put in the background as you're doing something else. And then you have change the channel or skip it, which basically means absolutely not worth your time. Hulk Hogan Real American gets a must watch. It's excellent. It's worth every single episode. It is not a perfect documentary. Let me stress that. It occasionally pulls its punches and avoids going deep enough into some of Terry Bollea's most controversial moments. Yet, despite those flaws, it does remain to be a very compelling television watch. The series succeeds because Hulk Hogan himself remains one of the most fascinating figures in professional wrestling, hell, and entertainment. And few celebrities have really experienced that level of fame, influence, backlash, reinvention, personal destruction that Terry Bollea endured throughout his entire life. And the documentary ultimately reveals something for wrestling fans, and I wouldn't say the smarts, but the casual wrestling fans, that Hulk Hogan was both real and fake at the same time. But underneath the red and yellow stood a man who increasingly struggled to separate himself from the myth the world demanded he continue performing forever. The contradiction is what makes Hulk Hogan Real American worth watching. Even with its flaws, its sanitizing edges, Hulk Hogan Real American stands as one of Netflix's most engaging wrestling documentaries to date. I personally found this to be better than the McMahon documentary. It's not completely removing the mask, like which I will hope it to do, but it shows enough of the man for me to kind of get a better understanding of who Terry Bollea was. And that will conclude my review of Hulk Hogan Real American. What did you think of the documentary? Comment below and let me know. If you like what we do here, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe button, and notification bell. But more importantly, visit imaginativvisions.com to see retrospective videos, articles, reviews that do not hit the channel. I'll catch you on the next one. Later days.
Here's your winner, the Hulk Hogan. Ultimate Warrior is not used to